Hi there, and welcome to your weekly top-up of oenological nonsense, decanted from my brain, Bert, and into yours at the other end of this video. Thank you very much for joining me today. One of the things within my career in the wine industry I've always loved to do is challenge food and wine pairing stereotypes. You know, one of the things we're all guilty of is knowing what we're having for dinner and just picking the first thing that comes to mind off the shelf. But there is a huge world, and there are so many wines out there that offer so much versatility in what they can be paired with. So for instance, last night, one of the dishes that Mrs. Weinberg cooks for us on various occasions is a Massaman Curry. Now, my instinct would be to go either Riesling or Gewürztraminer. And I thought to myself, well, do you know what? A white wine just isn't going to cut it tonight. I really fancy a good glass of red. And so I thought to myself, well, let's look at the components of the Massaman. So it is quite rich and it's full, but it doesn't pack a great deal of heat, especially when Mrs. Weinberg cooks it. And it offers those gorgeous notes of sweet spice. There's hints of cinnamon, but there is also that sort of earthy tone that you get from things like when they add the carrot. And I thought, well, what sort of red would I go for? One of my first thoughts was to go for something along the lines of a Carignan, you know, because you want something with a softer tannin structure. You want something with a nice sort of fleshy, fruity acidity. But you also want something that's more sort of verging towards the medium in terms of its body rather than the big full side. And I thought, well, do you know what? I mean, it would be nice to talk about this wine tonight with you. And I'm a big Carignan fan, so I thought it'd be too easy. So what I decided to go for was this little number right here. This is the Bobos, Finca Casa la Borracha, which is House of the Drunken Woman in Spanish, which is a great name. It's 100% Bobal, the name of the grape variety. And Bobal, we in the wine industry often consider to be the lonely grape of Spain, because ordinarily with Bobal, we've probably all had it but don't know. And the reason is because they use Bobal a lot to bulk out other wines. And, you know, they often use it in wines where they have a wine name rather than popping the grape on the bottle, because no one really knows what Bobal is. You've almost certainly had it if you've been in one of those sort of small tapas bars down an alleyway in Spain and they give you that free glass of red whilst you're eating your tapas. Don't we all long to be back there? That ordinarily is Bobal as well. Big and fruity, but with that lovely fleshy acidity and soft tannin, so it just feels really easy on the palate. It's indigenous to a little area called Utiel Requena, which is in Valencia in Spain, which is where this one comes from too. And the name Bobal actually comes from the Latin word bovale or boval, which in itself means bull. And the reason is because when the grapes are growing, they grow in these really tight clusters, but big old grapes, really tight clusters and dark. And so it's quite pedestrian really, but it looks like a bull's head. And this is exactly where it got its name from. So the reason I had this with the Massaman is because it has that lovely soft tannin structure. Now, this particular one has seen a little bit of French oak and quite young French oak too as well, which offers a bite of tannin, but more than structure, it adds flavour. It gives it this sweet sort of undertone of vanilla, which, you know, backed up by this punch of blueberry, by this blackberry, bramble, blackcurrant note. And then you have those sort of soft spice notes going on too, the vanilla being one of them. And there is one of my favourite notes is the blueberry, and you get that on the nose. It's beautifully aromatic. I mean, you can sit here and smell it for hours. You know, it's got this sort of mockery undertone, black forest gateau, you know, with that chocolate, that coffee, that blackberry. It's just an absolute delight. And it works with the Massaman because I'm not going to say that Bobal is identical to Carignan, but stylistically they can be quite similar. And as you can see, not just Massaman Curry. One of my favourite things to do with a Bobal, because it's got a softness to it, is if you're just going to sit there with a small plate of cheese, forgo your port, because port will blast a lot of your softer cheeses completely out of the water, whereas Bobal can be just over the cusp of being too big, but it works wonderfully. I picked these cheeses up recently in a little deli in Norfolk, and we've got this gorgeous White Lady, which is a Brie from an area around there. It's got a really nice rind. It's almost like a crisp, which is really good. And then you've got that lovely sort of soft, gooey, buttery bit. And what you want to do is really chew down. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that on the mic. That's your ASMR moment. Take your smell. Have your swig. And the way the cheese has that sort of chalky texture brings out the little bit of tannin that you get in this wine. Wonderful pairing, and as you can see, I've got an assortment of different ones that I'm going to be sort of snacking on over the course of the rest of the evening. But yeah, I just thought I would introduce you to this little number, Bobos, Finca Casa La Borracha, 100% Bobal from Uti Albequena in Valencia in Spain. The next time you are in your wine merchants, ask if they've got a Bobal, because it not being very well known always, almost certainly offers great representation in terms of value for money. This, I mean, does sit at a more top-endy price of about £21.99, 22 quid, there or thereabouts, but the wine you're getting in that bottle is worth way more. So here's the quirky pairings: Massaman Curry and Bobal, and then your cheese if you fancy a bit after that. Have a lovely weekend, and fingers crossed next week's edition might be just one that is coming home.